Bill Clinton today would probably be a Republican. I mean, he would be because everything has moved so far to one side. You know what I mean? And so it's just this thing where it's like, we have people, they just want to hear what they think is right. They want their ideas to be validated, and they don't care about what anybody else thinks.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to this Business Monday episode of A Call to Leadership. We've got a three-part series, and this is our final episode in this series. I've invited Sam, Salah, and Travis Revelle to shed some light on these aspects of what's happening at Twitter with Elon Musk, with Disney, and now this third installment on the polarization of society and how it affects us in business and in life, for that matter. This is going to be a sizzler. Can't wait for you to listen in. I'm Dr. Nate Salah, and this is A Call to Leadership. The thing about political leadership, that's one of the things that's different about political leadership versus organizational leadership in a company, is that when you, just like what's happening at Twitter, here's our vision for the company. You like it, you work here. You don't like it, you leave. Doesn't quite work the same way in a country. Mm-hmm. Just because there's a new leader in a country doesn't mean everybody that doesn't support that leader's views and values is going to leave that country, right? They're still citizens, and you're still responsible to them. And so this creates a conundrum, because you have your constituents, air quotes, who supported your presidency, and you have promises that you've made to them. But then you have the other half, mm-hmm. which is almost a majority, and sometimes it is, who say, hey, what about us? And so you're right. I mean, how? And so then you look, okay, well, what leaders in the past have actually been able to cross the line, right? To be able to bind both sides together, and then the ones in the middle. What did they do differently, right? I mean, look at and some people would disagree, but look at like a Reagan. Mm-hmm. Yeah, or look at even like a Clinton to some extent, right?
Or Kennedy.
Or a Kennedy.
They spoke to everybody.
Yeah.
Or an FDR.
Not just their constituents.
Right. They were centrists.
Yeah.
I think Bill Clinton today would probably be a Republican. I mean, he would be, because everything has moved so far to one side. You know what I mean? I mean, and so it's just this thing where it's like, we have people who they just want to hear what they think is right. They want their ideas to be validated, and they don't care about what anybody else thinks. And it's a train wreck, man. Really.
And social media doesn't help.
Social media does not
because
help.
The algorithm actually has been shown to actually perpetuate that.
Absolutely.
Right? So the algorithm says,
algorithm's locked in.
Yeah.
That's what we say all the time.
Yeah.
Algorithm's locked in.
Yeah. You said the word MSNBC. So, okay. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Let's start inundating with that, so that you won't see any Fox News, or just go down the line, Sky News, or any of the the more conservative viewpoints. And we're going to enculturate you with what we believe the direction you're going in. Mm-hmm. How does that help to have actual real dialogue and a difference of ideas? Because you know this as well as I do, right? We tend to, the three of us are more in the space where we'll analyze the different viewpoints, right? But every one of us, including our listener right now, has someone in their family, right, who says, I would die before I would turn on fill in the blank, CNN,
yes,
Fox News, MSNBC, right? Mm-hmm. We probably tend to watch more CNBC than anything.
I was going to say I watch CNBC.
Yeah, because right?
Or Bloomberg, right? Like
I just say it. People want to be in the echo chamber. It's natural.
It's validation.
Validation of your beliefs.
It's validation. And listen, and my dad listens to this stuff, but I'm going to tell you right now, right? My dad is very conservative. And just to mess with him, you know what I mean? Like when he comes over to my house, I turn all my TVs on MSNBC.
You're so bad.
He doesn't know how to change it. He can't work my remote control. You know what I mean? So then he gets mad. But you know what it does? it gives us like, he'll start arguing with me and stuff like that. But then it's like, it's an opening for us to exchange ideas. And I'm not liberal by any stretch of the imagination. Right. But, I'm a centrist, right? Like
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I think people should be able to do what they want to do as long as you're not hurting somebody else. Like, leave me alone. You know what I mean? Type deal.
The bumper sticker.
Yeah. 100%. Right. Just leave me alone. Like, just let me live, leave me alone. And he'll start, I can't believe you're raising your kids in this household and they listen to this. And it's funny for a minute, but it's like, my dad and I have such a good relationship that then we'll just talk about stuff. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, no, we have like, my wife has a side of the family that we literally have not, there's COVID and there's all this stuff that's going on, but like, we haven't seen them in probably 3 years because they have certain beliefs. And if you don't believe in that, they're not going to let it slide. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to keep pushing it in your face and in your face. And at some point you're just like, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue with anybody.
Exactly what we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going to argue with you because I'm not going to change your mind. You're not going to change my mind. So like, why are we arguing?
You're not in the echo chamber.
Yeah. But it's sad because there are family members over there that like we all miss, you know what I mean? But like, you have to draw like for your own sanity, right? And just to enjoy life. Like, all of us, right? Especially, I'm guaranteed the majority of the people that listen to this, right? Every day is a battle, one way or the other, right? Like, you're battling, you're fighting for your company, you're fighting for your employees, you're fighting for your family, like you're fighting, right? Like I say it all the time, like, how was your day today? I fought today. What do you mean you fought today? I fought the government, right? I fought the insurance companies, like, and so it's like, when I'm home, I don't want to fight. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to enjoy company. I just want to enjoy people. And I don't care what your political leanings are. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if you're woke or if you're not woke. As long as you're not pushing it onto me, I'm not going to push my stuff onto you.
That's the problem, though.
But that's the problem.
Because everybody's like pushing everything on
right.
Everybody.
Like, you're not going to change somebody else's opinion. You're just going to entrench them further into believing that they're right and you're wrong. And tying it back into a business scenario, right? Like, as a business leader, you can't get into these situations, right? Like, you have to, the Disney thing, you have to think, what's the best for my business, and how do I position my business? And you're going to have diverse employees. I have employees that run the gamut across every ideological spectrum, every religious spectrum, and we celebrate every religious holiday equally. You know what I mean? Like, and we learn about everybody's religious, holidays. Everybody's political. We don't talk about politics. Like, there's the old saying, like, you don't talk about politics and money,
And religion.
And religion, right? Like, those three things. Society was probably a little bit better when we didn't talk about how much money we made, you know what I mean? And shove that in somebody else's face. Talk about who we voted for. Right. Talk about, which God we serve and why that God is so much better than yours. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah. Mind your own business.
Mind your own business.
So I think, I come from a different, like I would consider myself pretty conservative, maybe even borderline libertarian, because I actually want less government than conservatives want. I don't think the government does anything very well.
I agree.
In my opinion. So I probably am a little bit into the libertarian part, but I come from two parents that are liberals. Very devout liberals, right? Which is crazy to me because, none of the values were liberal values.
Right.
Right. So it's like this it's weird. It's, I always, they would say, like why are you not like that? I said, well, open a business and employ people and have a couple daughters and your views on life will change. Mm-hmm. This is true, right? So I think that we are influenced by our parents for sure. But I think that as we grow up and we experience life, depending on, what path we take, that shapes our views, right? And I think right now you have the media, you have big companies, you have government trying to shape your views.
Mm-hmm. The media is definitely trying to shape your views.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to go out and say it, the media leans left. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's anything we can debate here.
No.
I think everyone agrees that. So I think that these agendas are kind of, they used to just report the news. Like, there is no like news people anymore.
Walter Cronkite,
like they're
Reddit. Yeah. Let you decide.
Yeah. That's gone. So now we have this machine, right? That is an echo chamber for some, right? And for others, they say, "Oh, I don't listen to this all day, so I'm going to go to this other echo chamber that's going to, it's going to be more my beliefs, right?" But I think that just creates this division. Like I have friends that I consider family that I love more than anything, that I pretty much disagree with 99% of everything they believe on a social, political scale, right? Believe in bigger government. Government can change stuff. Government, should be more involved in our lives, which goes against everything I believe, right? Government should not make the decision of how I raise my kids, what I decide to do. That it needs to enable me to grow my business and employ people, not become a hindrance, right? So we disagree on 99.9% of it, right? And we know that we will never agree, but we don't look at each other any differently. And when we're together, it's amazing.
Well, and that's the decision you've made, and that's a beautiful place to be. I tend to look at the media as marketing arms, right? They're advertising.
Right.
And so, the left is advertising to me because my parents are immigrant Palestinians, right? They say, your marginalized community, hey, we're your people. Mm-hmm. The right is advertising to me because I appreciate empowerment over entitlement, right? And they say, hey, we're your people, right? And it's like everyone's advertising because they want your vote. And so I then take that and look at it through the lens of, okay, what is your motive? If your motive is you're going to speak to a need that I have because you want my vote, then I need to look at the entire picture and look at where you are as a whole and what's the actual purpose of my vote for you. I mean, does it actually get things done in ways that you're right, you're smirking, right? That are in congruence with my value chain? And the answer is generally no. Yes, on some level, but really, like I look at marginalized communities in the 50s to today, right? Is it better? In a lot of ways, the answer is, in those communities, because I work and I've lived in those communities, and the answer is, well, Nate, it's not much better, right? It's the political system has not been the influencer in how we've been able to progress the human condition. It's people. It's people serving people outside of politics. It's communities. It's the religious organizations who are actually doing some binding and saying, you know what? You might be Catholic, you might be Protestant, you might be Muslim, you might be Jewish, you might be Hindu, right? But we're all in the same community. We're all one community, so let's work together. Even though we have different beliefs, we have a combined value, and that's humanity. We're one. Years ago, I stopped putting my race on, like when I go to the doctor's office. Mm-hmm. I started putting, because it asks you, Pacific Islander, or I don't even know where those come from anyway, right? Hispanic, non-Hispanic. Right. It's like, why are the Hispanics like separated from everybody else, right? So I started putting human. And it was funny because I went to my doctor's office and he's like, human. He said, I like that. Yeah, because that's what I am. Yeah. I'm part of the human race.
Right. Well, and the funny thing is, and especially now with you can find out what you really are for DNA testing.
You can. And it surprises people.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of mutt are you?
Have you done your DNA test?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So this was, and this is kind of a story, but this is interesting, right? So my entire life I'm growing up, right? Everybody's like, oh, we have so much Native American in our family tree, right? Like my great grandmother, we're talking early 1900s, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, right? Cherokee Indian, blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like I got a lot of Native American, and I have a darker complexion, you know what I mean? Like I'm more of an olive skin tone and stuff like that. And so that was it, right? And so I this has probably been about, 5 or 6 years ago when it first came out. So I took the thing, comes back, and I'm 0.1% Native American.
Wow.
0.1%, right? Nothing. I'm 15% Western African.
Brother, we didn't even know this,
15% Western African, right? And then I've got a little bit of Asian, right? Like there's like 3% like Asian. But I immediately, right, was like, okay, like interesting.
Is that Northwestern or Southwestern? You got me.
No, it's
Central Western.
No, it's Western African. I mean, it is 100% like, and the interesting thing about it is it will show you where in your family tree where these different ethnicities were in play, right? And it was my great grandparents. One of them was African. And, so, my family on my dad's side, right, they're from the South. So I had to be kind of cautious on how I kind of presented this. And so I got my mom a test and I had her take it, right? And she's like 98% Wales, but both my grandparents came from Wales, right? So she's Welsh. She's 90% Welsh. So there's no African.
Right. Check that box.
Check that box, and I'm circling the wagons, I'm circling the wagons. I know what's going on. I'm circling the wagons. And so I get one for my dad. And I'm like, hey, take this. I'm like, he's always interested in like genealogy and stuff like that. And so he's living in Florida at the time. So I sent it to him. He's like, okay, I'll take it. And I hadn't heard back from him for like 3 or 4 weeks, which is a very, very long time to not hear from my dad, And so I call him and I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, nothing. What's going on? And I'm like, nothing. Kind of chit chat for a minute. I'm like, hey, did you get your results back? He's like, yeah, I got my results back. And I'm like, anything interesting? He's like, you already know what it said. He's like, listen, he's like, I get it. He's like, if I were your great grandmother in the late 1800s, and I could pass in southern Missouri, and I could pass for a Native American, he's like, I would. And I'm like, no, me too, exactly right. But my dad played college football, and he's a track runner, and he's always like, they always called me the fastest white boy. And I'm like, I don't know if you can technically get away with that now, anymore. Dad, right?
Yeah,
right.
Stripped of that title.
So I mean, I think like, we all.
What does that do? What does that do for you when
I mean,
that changes?
So I will say, like, for me, right? I mean, I've always, we have I call my family, like on my wife's side, the United Nations. I mean, literally, right? Like, there's every color, creed. I mean, it's a very welcoming environment, right? So for me, like, it was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is cool. This shows that even though 99.99% of people who just saw me would be like, white dude. You know what I mean? No. Like, I cover multiple continents, multiple races, right? Like, all these people came together to make me, you know what I mean? And it's like you said, I'm a human.
Yes.
There is nobody, I would doubt, unless you're in some very, very rare ethnic group, right? Everybody is a mixture of everything. And I think if people actually knew that, it would change their perception of who are we fighting for?
100%. In fact, there was a movie that I watched years ago, and Sam, you would understand this very closely as well as I, because the Palestinians and the Jewish people have had a big conflict in the Middle East for many, many years, right?
I like how you just
you like that. You like that?
Yeah, I like that.
That academic version of it. So there was a movie where this Palestinian guy, or this Arab guy, he wasn't Palestinian, but he was Arab. He finds out he's actually Jewish, right? And he's like, first he has this existential crisis, then he starts embracing, Jewish culture and that. And as I watched the movie, it was like kind of like eye-opening. It's like, we're just people. We're brought up in a certain way to believe certain things. And as we get older, we have the choice. When we're young, choices are made for us. But as we grow up, we then get to make choices for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And it's a time for us to start thinking for ourselves, not turning on the news to tell us what we should think for the day, not letting our background dictate what we should believe, but understanding there's a much broader view of life and that we don't sacrifice our identity. In fact, I believe that we enhance our identity when we can embrace the fact that the diversity that's inside of us is actually a strength, not a weakness.
100%.
Well, it's like tribalism, right? It's like everybody needs to belong to something.
But why can't we just belong to the human race, right? Like
that's my whole point.
Yeah.
It's like if less of that, you don't have to belong to something. We can all be.
You know what it would take?
Each other is the same.
And this is, I would love to do a podcast on this, because there's so much stuff coming out, like where the government's releasing about like UFOs.
Yeah, now it's a thing, right? We always, like it's a thing.
There's so much, and there's so many things about like, this is like, we are getting so close to like full disclosure. Like it's just, and then it talks about like how they've used movies to start to condition people, right, about this stuff. What's going to bring the human race together is when we find out there's another race.
We're not alone.
We are not alone.
All of a sudden,
I believe that.
Then that's a uniting factor. Because why? Because now we're tribalism on a larger level, right? Like nothing's going to bring the world together more than finding out there's another species out there that's more advanced than us, and that could cause us harm. That's going to bring people, and it's so sad, but that's what it's going to take.
I would agree.
Some deep stuff right there. I love the way this is going. Business Monday. We're tackling some business. Right. Some business. But that speaks to, I think it comes full circle, right? I think it's important to, like, as we're talking about all these subjects, it comes full circle with what we're talking about, what we started out with Twitter, right? Yes, we have diverging understandings. Yes, we are different, but we're one humanity, right? And we have a common cause to propel humanity forward. And I think that you talked about the DNA, right? The genealogy stuff. I think it's great to just do that. I mean, people say, "Oh, I don't want the government having my saliva."
They have it.
But when I did mine, I was same thing, right? Sam, I mean, obviously we're related, so most of our DNA is the same, right? But I was surprised too. I was like, wow, partly from Cyprus. It's like, okay, wow, partly Phoenician from Tyre and Sidon, partly from Africa as well, except North Africa, which is Egypt. I knew that. Mm-hmm. But you start connecting, and part of it from Southern Europe, like Italy, Albania, Greece, right? So you're like, wow, all these continents, little Senegal, by the way,
right.
Yeah. And you're like, and so so the first thing I think of is I tell my wife, it's like, we need to go to Cyprus. She goes, why? I said, so I can see my people, right? I can go see my cousins in Cyprus. She's like, Cyprus? Like, look at my DNA. It came back. Yeah. And you get connected.
Absolutely. You're a part. And the crazy thing to me is like, so I don't know if yours, like mine tracked like the oldest female. It was like 4,000 years ago in the Middle East, right? For the oldest female in my lineage. And like the oldest male was like 2,000 years. And it's like, to think about how many people had to just survive for you to be here today. And you're going to worry about if somebody has a differing opinion on liberalism or conservative. Like, you know what I mean? Like
it's so humbling.
It doesn't matter, right? Like none of this stuff really, really matters at the end of the day, right? Like, and it's just nuts. And then I think about like my kids and how crazy their DNA is, because now you're throwing all this Czechoslovakian in there, and it's just like, we are children of the world, and like, it is what it is, right? And I mean, we need to do a better job. The people, and maybe we're kind of tying this up for myself, right? I said I don't tweet because I don't want people to, I don't want to offend, right? I don't want that heat. But there's a silent majority that's sitting out there that's not doing that, and I need to do a better job of stating where I'm at, because it's going to take people like us to say this is what we this is what we really believe, and not let the people who are the extremists control the narrative.
I'll make a deal with you. We'll make our first tweet this week.
Okay,
you make yours, I'll make mine, and mine's gonna be real simple. When I check my race card, it's human.
That's awesome.
I like that.
I will retweet that.
So Dun, dun, dun. I'm going to ask the question. We'll play this 2, 3, 5 years from now. Did Elon Musk make a wise choice? Silence.
Oh, my God.
I'm saying yes.
Saying yes.
Saying yes.
All right.
I want to say no so bad, but I also... I don't think it's going to be pretty, but I think he's going to get the job done. I don't want to say that because I don't think it's the right thing, but I don't want to bet against Elon Musk. You know,
that's where I'm at.
I just don't. I just don't. You know, I don't think that it was. Let me take this back. Was it a wise decision? I would say probably not a wise decision. Will it be a successful decision? I would think that it will in some way, shape, or form be successful. But I think that if he would just stick to getting us to Mars, right?
We get there faster.
We get there faster.
Yeah. I'm gonna share both of your sentiments and add my own twist to it. Yes, I think that Elon Musk can get it done. I think that today, more than ever, with his experience, 20 years ago, I think it would have been almost possibly catastrophic for him to take on this type of responsibility. He's in his second act. He's building his legacy. And most visionary leaders, it's their second act where they really make the mark. So I would argue that he's going to make this work. I do believe on some level that his focus moving to that medium is going to, at least in the short term, hurt his progress with his other organizations because there's only so much of you. There's only so much you can do. And the same thing happened with Steve Jobs when he was between Apple and Pixar. Back in the 90s, 97, when he took back over Apple when they were 90 days from insolvency, he had to take his focus and shift off of Pixar because Apple was hemorrhaging. And by the way, completely different approach. We'll figure out the future when the future gets here. But he was exhausted. I mean, he could barely even hold it together. So I can only imagine how exhausted Musk must be, even at his level of 3 to 4 hours of sleep at night, whatever it looks like. But I think in the long run, it's going to self-correct. I think that once he spends 3 to 6 months redesigning Twitter and gets back into the focus of having leadership teams at Twitter to continue to manage it, I think it's going to be a new animal. I think it's going to be an organization that I hope it progresses. I hope that the kind of free speech that he desires is the kind of free speech that the market will not only accept, but that it will breed new ways for us as leaders to share in a whole new way.
I hope so as well. I think Twitter's needed. I think it's an important part of society.
Yeah.
I hope he does a good job.
I would agree.
Okay. We'll see what happens. Until next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.